Hi, Olga. Welcome to Spainly Living.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Well, thank you. So Olga, you've moved to Spain, and we want to understand your background, where you came from, why you decided to move to Spain, and how did you come to work in property in Spain?
Well, so I moved to Spain in August 2020. That was basically right after that the borders were open all over the Europe. And the idea was to move to Spain because not to wait, your retirement period, but to start to profit from the sun and from the nice life, let's say, a bit earlier, especially when my husband he got the first wave of COVID, so he was really sick, and we thought that we should not wait longer. The Alicante area we choose because that's where my sister lives. And it was also strategically because of the airport of Alicante, which is considered to be number fifth biggest airport in Europe. And my husband is still continuing to work in Luxembourg, where we have our clinic of gynecology. And I'm basically permanently living with kids in Alicante. My story was in the beginning, I was looking what can I do, and what can I put my energy to besides being a mom. So I decided to try in real estate. And at the beginning, I was guided by Lucas Fox agency. Basically, how it happened, I bought with them my personal house, and then I said, can I work with you? So I spent like an internship by them about 1 month, 2 months. And then I decided that I would try to do it on my own, as I was already at the age when I couldn't see myself working for someone. So in the end, I started the agency in 2022. And in the beginning, they were more like the clients, mostly friends who were coming from Luxembourg and who were looking for a second home in Spain, in Costa Blanca area, not specifically in Alicante itself. And it was a clients more starting from 500,000, more like houses, not really apartments and not really for rental purposes. Although the rental market up to last year was very interesting for short-term properties. So in the end, I've met in 2023 a Dutch guy whose name is Morris and his wife Josephine. And we started the agency together. At the beginning, it was more like short-term rental business. So we bought property in Villa Hayosa and we were renting it short-term. But then we decided that we just want to concentrate ourselves in sales and buying properties in Costa Blanca area for our clients. And it went well, and we started to work from home as well. And he brought also part of Dutch clients, for us. So it was a kind of a good mix. And now this year we are opening our first office in Alicante, and it will be 5 minutes away from the airport. That was again strategical, choice of the location. So we would meet our clients and we would go with them to the office, and then we could go south or north depending on which area they prefer. Yeah. Well, that's about it.
Fantastic. And what foreigners who are looking to either buy property in Alicante or this region or the Costa Blanca, what is it that you would suggest that they look for if they're looking to rent or buy? Do you have any sort of items that they need to understand about the Spanish property market?
Yeah, so we have different kind of clients. Some clients, they are buying just for their own families, they don't want to rent, and some of the clients, they want specifically that it's possible to rent during short term or during the time that they are not using the property. What you have to understand that in Alicante, Costa Blanca area, not all the areas where you would get a short-term tourist license. This is the license which you need absolutely in order to short-term your property. And then this license, for example, Alicante Center are not given anymore this license. But if you go to Campello, which is basically 20 minutes away, it's the first biggest village, I would say, close to Alicante area. There it's possible to get the license. And like this, areas, there are many. So basically, you would need a professional who would say to you, in this area, you can do it, in this area, you can't do it. And also, uh, now there is a new rule about the coastal line. So they moved it more towards the shore. I think it was 25 meters more. So some properties, they lost the value, and all these nuances, all these details, you would have to know in advance when you buy the property. Also, I would suggest to come beforehand and to look a little bit the region, so you would know. I like more green spaces. I like more the city area. I like more quiet. I like more vibrant life. So you would understand a little bit what you're looking for. And never buy property just online like you did during COVID, because right now borders are open. And I think it's very wise to come and to look, because on the pictures, properties are always looking bigger. And on the reality, they're always looking smaller. So also pictures could be done in a way that the ceilings are looking higher. So all these details are very important to consider, and also to at least send an agent whom you trust to check the property in advance.
And are you able to work as an agent for clients to have a look at the properties in this area as well, or do you just sell properties?
So me, Morris, and Josephine, we finished a special course to get the license, which calls API, professional from the real estate, and we are able to sign and to give advice about any property which is available on the market, also to evaluate the property price-wise, and we are working always with lawyers, with architects. We are working with gestor, which is basically accountant in Spanish.
Yeah.
And they are giving you some insights, because each case is different. And sometimes you bring money from the non-European countries. This process is very long and quite complicated. And you have to also know that when you buy property, you have to pay 10% tax. So some amount which to consider, because from the big amount like 1 million, you have 100,000 plus. So plus 1% usually goes to notary and to lawyers and to gestors, so all these amounts need to be considered. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned the rental permit. For the people who don't understand what it is, do you want to just give a description of what that permit is, and what the issues around them are, and how would you go about applying for one?
So basically, if in this area where you bought the property, it's allowed to get the permit, the procedure is more or less straightforward. You have to apply by Ministry of Tourism. But the problem is, of course, if you don't speak Spanish, procedure is quite long to fill in all the papers, etc. So you can also ask architect to do it. Are you on layback? Yeah. So you can ask also architect to do it for a certain amount of money. Let's say, I don't know, usually they ask about €400 for that. And he will fill in the papers for you. He will do all the steps necessary. The interesting thing is that although he does everything for you, you will receive at home normally expert from Ministry of Tourism who would check all the criteria which you filled in, all the necessary security, let's say, compliance in your home. You would receive some person who is coming to check. And this person
Okay.
usually is friendly and coming to see if you need to do some improvements. For example, like people don't know that you have to normally in your property print the sort of in case of fire exit place. And this place, this paper has to be visible for tourists. And also you have to like normally print your number of the tourist license and to have all the papers like emergency dial 112, pharmacy,
Yeah.
firefighters, all these phone numbers should be visible for tourists, and in case they need it, they could easily find where to ask help for.
Okay.
So
Okay,
yeah,
that's helpful.
it's not that difficult, not that difficult. And you get it usually within 3 months, I would say.
And where needed in Spain, you have to have this license to enable you to rent out your property. Is that right for short-term use? If it's longer than, say, a few days and not short-term, can you rent it out without this license?
No, now what I was talking about is a short-term license, right?
Mm-hmm.
Short-term license with the new rules should be less than 10 days. So it's usually
Mm-hmm.
tourists who are coming for a maximum of 10 days to your house, and then they would enjoy the good weather, and then they would go back. Long term is something completely different. So long term is the contract for more than 10 days eventually, or
Mm-hmm.
even I would say more than 1 year. And there
Mm-hmm.
is procedure is different. You basically give all the rights to the family to live in until the
Mm-hmm.
contract is finished. This is a little bit a different license. It's like a contract where, in case of non-pay, would be difficult to get the family out. That's the first thing.
Okay.
So you have to really check if people are able to pay. If they are not able to pay, if they are correct family, they would go out. If they are not so correct family, they would stay, and you will have difficulties of at least 3 months to get them out.
Um,
Um, and my clients, they are not renting long term. They're all renting short term. It's much more easier. They don't want to have a headache of, family non-paying, and they are basically outside of the country, so they can't really manage the property. We do not manage properties for our clients. We have a lot of contacts, a lot of other companies who are doing that for them, but
mm-hmm.
we are only helping them to choose right the region according to their needs, whether they want
Yeah.
to rent, whether they want just to have second home for vacation only, or whether they want to relocate. This is completely three different things. So if you want to relocate, you have to choose it wisely, because whether you have kids, you have to look close to school. If you don't have kids,
Mm-hmm.
you can go more farther from the airport, enjoy nature, enjoy more quiet lifestyle, I would say. And again, each demand, each case is different. So we have to look case by case and to advise them in the best way possible.
Excellent. And what are the differences between renting or buying a property in Spain that you've seen that are can be quite different from other countries? Is there anything that people should be aware of when they're looking to potentially rent or buy in Spain?
Yes. So we don't do renting, as I said, but when you do mortgage, for example, and you want to buy new build, the procedure is very complicated, and basically you can say that the bank does not help you to obtain mortgage until the last 3 months of construction, when it's construction finished, So to obtain mortgage in Spain in Spain in general is possible. Is possible, and it is even possible if you are not working in Spain. It's possible when you have your own salary or your own company outside of Spain. But the procedure is usually like 3 months to ask for the mortgage, and it's quite long process. They will ask you papers there and back, and then in the end you get yes or no. To buy second home is much easier because a second home, its existing structure, its existing like documents are clean, what we call. So the documents which you get, they already registered and established in the registry of properties, and you can extract as a bank also and verify the information which you have about the house, about the owners, and the procedure is much more quickly, and they have as a guarantee an object. So when you have a new build, for them it's like something off plan, something which is not yet existing, and they are suspicious to give you the mortgage. When you have a second home, it's basically a structure which is existing, and you can check that it's there. You can even go there, which they do usually. They send an expert to see if everything corresponding from the papers to the object itself. They make their own evaluation. Usually it has to be very close to the selling price. If the selling price is much lower or much higher, that's also not good, because in this case, you might not get the amount of money which you asked from the mortgage. So you will get much lower price amount of which you can, get as a second part of your financial statement. Rental, as I say, we don't do. It's something completely different, as an area of activity, and it's also demand to be up to date, to be up to date with information on the market. So we decided not to do it. What I can say that usually if you are relocating and you are the foreigner and you don't work yet in Spain, be ready that they will ask you several months of the rental price in advance. Because for them, in the past, Spain had a lot of bad experience when a lot of people started to rent and then they were not paying. So all the owners are afraid of that, and they want to be sure that foreigners will not disappear without paying. So they ask them to pay several months in advance. But then if you are paying long term and the owner of the house start to get to know you, they would trust you more, and then you can pay month by month, on the monthly basis. But in the beginning, I would say they would at least ask you 3 to 4 months in advance. Maybe more. In some cases, more. What was about you? Did you had a good experience about rental?
No. We were going to just do an Airbnb until we knew what the situation would be. So we were looking at some Airbnbs, but because we were moving in August, it was high season.
Yes.
So the prices were astronomical. And so we'd come to Alicante in February of that year, and we had rented an Airbnb, and it was lovely. So we asked our Airbnb host if he'd be open to letting us rent his property for the time that we were going to be here, just for maybe 3 months or so, to get our bearings and understand the lay of the land in terms of the rental space and what we could look at for longer term, because I know being someone who we're running our companies in the UK, um, we we would struggle to show sort of Spanish income, which is a
Yes.
problem when trying to rent. So he said that his property wasn't available, but he had a friend who doesn't live in Alicante, but they had a property. And so I came for a visit, sort of a spot visit to have a look at the property. It looked lovely. I met the people. They were really lovely. Everything was great. It was quite expensive, but we thought, it's a really lovely looking spot. It's very comfortable. We have a little boy, so we didn't want to move somewhere that would be a struggle. Um, and we moved in, it was fine. But then things started falling apart, like I think generally the build on properties in Spain is really bad. So we had issues with everything really. Like the electricity would keep going off, which is quite common because they're all working
Okay.
off of really old, yeah, electrical boards. The plumbing was terrible, the toilets kept breaking. Um, and we had cockroaches, and the elevator that was supposed to be installed and working wasn't. The stairs, they'd broken the stairs to put the elevator in, so it was all wobbly and falling apart. And then what happened in the winter is that really, really bad black mold started to grow everywhere because the way it was built, the window inlets let the water in. And they had these big, heavy curtains over the windows, which is not common in Spain because obviously there's a mold issue. And so we told the people about it, the homeowners, and said, look, this is really an issue because my partner was struggling with his lungs. So
Okay.
he couldn't even sleep in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they got really upset with us. They said it was our problem that there was mold in the house. And we said, well, can we remove the curtains? And no, we can't. Um, and then they retained about 500 euros of the deposit, and there was no way to get it back. So we had to move, obviously. So we looked for
Mm-hmm.
something, and we found something amazing, and we bought it. And well, obviously we had to be somewhere while it was being repaired. But then we had to move. And
Yeah.
we gave them the notice and everything, and then we went to the exit interview, I think is what you do, is like you go to like an exit thing with the agent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he said everything's fine, and then we were like, great. And we had paid privately to have the mold removed. We'd had paid privately to clean the apartment.
Uh-huh.
And then they just said, no, we don't think that you did a good enough job we think all of the things
Uh-huh.
that arose in the flat were your problem. And so they just withheld about 500 euro of the deposit. And I said, there's no way to fight them. We went to the agency says not our
Yeah.
responsibility. So yeah, that's basically what happened. So I think lesson learned would be go through a verified third party. So go through like Airbnb, booking.com, someone else, because genuinely there's no other way to, it's maybe more expensive, but I mean, it would have cost us about the same anyway. So,
Well, I know that when you do reservation through Booking, the owner has a right to ask a deposit. That's basically
mm,
the same as you call in Spanish fianza. And
mm,
you are not sure you will get all the money back because if
mm,
he or she complains, then you would have to still pay a certain amount. With Airbnb, it's although different because Airbnb, they have special insurance, and basically they invite you not to ask any deposit from the renters, but they will cover any costs or anything which will be broken through their insurance, which in this sense I find they're a little bit more progressive.
mm,
If you talk about, because now you talk about more short term, if you talk about long term,
mm,
there is always deposit. Usually it
mm,
is can go up to 1 month or 2 months even of rental price, and
mm,
this money usually is a big discussion when you go out. I saw rarely people who would go out and they would pay nothing. But as we are agents, we can't do anything about it because it's the law that he's allowed to give complaints and to be responsible, like the person who is renting is responsible to give in the same state as they get the building when they entered it. So in this sense, I think they're always trying to keep certain amount,
Yeah.
and you can't do anything because you would not go for the small amount complain to the lawyer because the lawyer would cost you more than 500, So yeah, that situation like this, unfortunately, is Spain and you can't change it.
I feel like in Spain, people should prepare to pay the deposit, but basically look at the deposit as just an upfront payment that you're not going to get back. Because I think I've spoken to so many people where they very rarely will they give you the whole deposit back. They want the property to be basically returned in almost a better condition than what you had it
Yes,
in. It's almost impossible.
yes. It's
It's almost
I would
impossible.
see it more as voluntarily put upfront amount to the future works and to prepare the amount for the next renters.
Yeah. Whereas in other countries, it's not like that. It protects the renter to say that, there's normal wear and tear because there will be,
Uh,
and that kind of thing. So when people are looking to potentially buy a property in the Costa Blanca area and they want to get in touch with you, do they need to prepare anything before they arrange the viewings? So, for example, in the UK, you can get something that's like a mortgage letter saying that you would qualify, you're almost pre-approved for a certain amount of money. Is there something similar that you're required before you get in touch to arrange the
okay.
meetings, or is that not required?
Well, we do not require anything like official letter in written, but we always
Mm-hmm.
ask who is the future buyer of the property, what is his history, does he has a family or he's alone, what is his aim
Mm-hmm.
to stay in Spain. So it helps a little bit to reassure the seller that he would have a serious, demand, and then he would be
Mm-hmm.
not spending his time for nothing. Because in order to prepare the viewing, many people they don't know that it's demand from the seller's part, a lot of cleaning, a lot of taking out personal items. Also, that he sometimes would have to take some time off from his main job because sometimes the
Yeah.
viewings are during the working hours. And all that, preparation is also, he's looking like it. I want to be sure that it's the serious client. So we do not
Yeah.
ask anything in written, but we always talk with clients and we're trying to understand what is his aim or where he's going to. We don't want just the client who would, have no clear vision what he wants, and he would go every property he likes around the Costa Blanca. He would go and look
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but from other point of view, if you know about which area about you want to buy, I would always suggest to visit at least 10 to 20 properties.
Wow.
Because every time you go, you would have a larger picture on what to expect and on what is the price variations, within the same sector, because sometimes properties has a big price difference and clients they don't understand why is that.
Yeah.
But the properties itself, they're also different. You have urbanizations
Yeah.
where you have a lot of neighbors, you have some more smaller residences. You have private houses with the private entry and private
Yeah.
garden. So all that is changing the price. Year of
Yeah.
construction, if it's recently built, if it was renovated, and so on and so on.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you manage expectations for customers around sort of locations and budgets, paperwork? Because I feel like Spain can be really bureaucratic in relation to the paperwork, registering with a notary, and then timelines, like how long it would take. Do you
Mhm.
have any insight into those elements?
Yeah, as I said, if you require mortgage, that's significantly, enlarging your period of demand and the period of receiving the right answer from the bank. So you would have to calculate at least 3 months. Although sometimes you speak to mortgage brokers and they say, we will get the answer in 2 weeks. Maybe. But
Yeah.
uh, this yes or no is only the beginning of the process. So if the bank say in principle yes, but then they start to ask you one paper after the other, and you think you are in the end of this process, but they still want another paper from your country. So it's always, surprisingly going up to 3 months.
Wow.
If you are a cash buyer and if you're within Europe, it makes process very easy because you don't need mortgage, you have money on hands, and you just basically need to make your own decision about the area, the size, if the price what you're looking for is okay. And then basically you just put your deposit, you sign the pre-contract, which calls arras in Spanish, and then you basically reserve the right to buy the property first line. So you will be the first one to whom they would sell. This also helps to seller stop showing the house.
I
So
see.
they will not show anymore to other visitors. They would say, we have first engagement, we have to respect it, and we would wait until all the papers are done. And if everything is okay, basically the house is sold, But I would argue, because some agencies, they put this amount on the agency side and it's neutral. And some agencies, they put to the buyer's side and it's already on the buyer's side. I would argue that it's a good idea to put immediately to the buyer's account, because, okay, there are two rules. So if you as a buyer, you want not anymore to buy this property, you lose your ARAS usually. So you lose your first amount which you paid. They consider it is like the moral damage or moral interest what you don't pursue to the main aim to buy your house. But if the seller doesn't want anymore to sell, he has to pay you double of the amount which you paid. So, and in this case, if the seller has already the money, then it's much more difficult to get from him back, So
Yeah.
it's like in Luxembourg, for example, you always put the deposit to the notary account, which is completely neutral, neither from agent, neither from buyer or seller. I think it's the best system, but in Spain, it's still like many ways possible. And so sometimes, you would have to argue which is the best way. But also many people thinking that if the property is a long time on the market, that it will not be sold. So they do not pay this first reservation amount. But this is wrong, because if you really want your property and you're sure about it, I always suggest to buy and to put some certain amount to it. So you are sure that the property will not disappear from the market. We had cases like it was two people who were interested, and in the end, the person who is putting the money as a deposit first gets the property. Yeah, as I said, you have to just know that you have to pay 10% more as a tax registration, and be ready to maybe fly several times in Spain. So first for the visit, second time maybe to meet the seller, and third time, even if you have all the money on hands, to go to the notary and so on. So it's also like several trips to plan, and within a certain time frame. It depends how quickly you need the house. Also, if you do not speak Spanish, it's advisable to have it translated during notary time, or at least someone who could translate you in the plain English or your language, so you understand what you are signing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. And what would your practical advice be for people who are moving with families or have
Mhm.
other requirements?
Yeah, so for families, I think it's also depending a little bit on the age of kids. If you have
Yeah,
young kids, so you would basically want to stay close to the school, and the
yeah,
school has to be reachable, I would say, within 25 minutes by car without traffic. Okay.
mm,
So some people, they would say, oh, we choose, area of Finistrat, we like it more, but our school is close to the airport, you know.
mm,
If you are in bad traffic, it could take you 1 hour. So one
yeah,
hour, on the way in the morning and 1 hour in the evening, it adds up to 2 hours already on the road. And I don't see any sense to do that. So
mm,
I would not say you have to be like within 10 minutes walking to the school, but at least to 20 minutes by car, without any
yeah,
traffic. And plus you have
yeah,
to calculate sometimes there are traffic jams. So
yeah,
it all that ends up, and also choose the school wisely. If your kids are very young, you can start Spanish system. That's not a problem. They learn quickly. If your kids close to teenage age, very difficult to adapt because they don't speak Spanish.
mm,
And Spanish groups, they tend to be close to foreigners. So
mm,
to adapt as a teenager is very difficult, and I would not advise to put them to Spanish school, for example. There are a lot of
okay,
international schools. We have Newton, we have King's College, we have St. Elizabeth School, which is on the mountains close to La Nucia, and I think the academics wise, it's a very, very, very good variety and very good standard.
mm, okay. And how can people avoid feeling overwhelmed when they're searching for a home in Spain? You mentioned 20 viewings. How
Yes.
do you what would you recommend to help people not feel super overwhelmed?
First of all, I would recommend to do a good research on idealista.com online from home without
Hmm.
coming to Alicante region immediately. So, like, do your homework first. You have to a little bit make research criteria which you would like to have. And then when you contact agent, you have to have a clear idea which region you would like, and maybe to speak and to ask for advice. But usually, when our clients, they're saying, I don't have a car and I want to have to be close to the airport, that limits them drastically to the area where they can buy. They can't go to mountain because they have no public transportation there. They can't have a car because they're not driving, or they are already past that age when you can learn, to drive.
Hmm.
So it limits very much your area where you can live. Also, for example, if you have teenage kids, I would advise as well to have the area where they have a lot of public transport, because teenage kids, they are going out in the night. You don't want to search him in Alicante city center if you are living yourself in Lanusa, for example, where it's difficult to
Hmm.
access in the night. So you would basically have to drive him. You will be his taxi driver. You would not want that he takes, in the night some strange people. Sometimes, you have this blah blah car, it's some other
Hmm.
applications. But basically think about some practical, imagine your life in some practical terms. Yeah, don't
Hmm.
complicate your life too much, even though sometimes I know sometimes it's much more interesting to have a lower price range and to go further from the coastal line, but you have to still live there and somehow
Yeah.
be social, and you have kids. So where the kids would, have this social aspect. So all that is important. So just imagine how you would manage from day to day, your life, and not to think, oh, this house is cheaper but it's more far from the sea. No problem. I will drive, to supermarket 35 minutes, but it will be not doable in long term.
Yeah. What support do you provide to your clients so that you can help them to make confident decisions?
Yeah, so we are explaining things about area, as I say. We're explaining things how it works about short-term rental. And then we also explain about taxes. And then if contract has to be done like between couples who are not married or between big families, sometimes you have family which is, the mom is buying, she has like two daughters and she wants immediately include them to the buying contract. So all these details we forward to our lawyers. We do not go with that ourselves. We have, as I said, the contacts to help you with lawyers, architects, renovation companies, and also all about taxes. So accountants, and we try to help you also to do some papers like NIE, it's identification, Spanish identification number. Basically, without it, you can't buy the property. You must have this identification number, even if you are not going to be permanent resident. That's what is important. And I think also it depends from which country you're coming from. If you are coming from European country, that's easier process because we are in the Schengen area, European area. After Brexit with UK, it's a little bit different standard procedure for the residency, so that's a little bit more difficult to obtain. And if you're coming from Russia or Africa, that's even more difficult, but all is doable. It's just, matter of time and a matter of how many months you're ready to spend in Spain.
Okay, that's helpful. That's helpful to know. And you said you relocated to Spain in 2020, and we're at 2026 now, midway through 2026. What has your experience been so far? What are the things that you've loved, and what are the things that you've absolutely not loved?
Well, first of all, I was also renting Airbnb my first 3 weeks when I arrived. So this experience was more or less okay. The owner, of the apartment on the first line, he was quite, helpful, but he knew also that we leave. So it was strict conditions from Airbnb. He knew what he gets. We knew what we get. And then in the end, we moved immediately to the house which we bought. But I made a lot of research in advance. So I started like, I think in April 2020. And I already spoke intensively with agents about the region. What do you think about this house? And what do you think about that house? And my conditions, they were clear. So I knew that I want to be close to specific school. I want to be like in the best possible safe region, and somewhere where people would live permanently whole year round, because there are regions which are very seasonal. So you have a lot of people in the summer and basically empty during the winter. And that's I didn't want. So my conditions were clear, and it was more or less easy to work with me because I knew what I wanted. And we moved to the house, which was barely finished. So it was like some pieces of, on the floor were missing. The kitchen was just done but not connected. Some some very wild things happened here. Like in the beginning, we had. Our heating system didn't work, so the boiler was there, but was not heating the water. So for a couple of weeks, I was with a cold shower, taking shower. But, it was very hot outside, so it was okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I always got like a joke from my agent. She said, "Ah, you have so beautiful house. It's like a Ferrari on the market." I said, "Yes, it's a Ferrari, which doesn't start, unfortunately."
Yeah.
But all that problems slowly with time we managed to get going, and yeah, we are very happy here, and it's like since I would say 3 years we also started to rent our house during the summertime, because for us it's
Mm.
very unbearable, the heat during the August month. So we are leaving usually to Nordic countries, basically either to Luxembourg or to Russia. So,
Mhm.
and our house is rented, and it's rented officially through Airbnb with tourist license, etc., etc. And we are very happy at the moment. It goes very well. We have very nice people coming. We've met very interesting people, actually. One author of the very famous novel from US. Then we had one owner of Café de la Finca, which is very known, like coffee company in Spain. So we got, to know very interesting people who came to visit us, and a lot of Spanish from Madrid region. It was very, very interesting experience, I would say. I can't complain.
That
And I'm
sounds,
very happy to live in the very warm climate as well.
yeah, that sounds ideal. That sounds wonderful. But if it's your home with you and your kids and your family, how do you prepare it for occupation by strangers? Do you have to almost have it completely emptied, or how do you do that practically?
Yes, so it usually takes us about a couple of days to prepare the house. We put most of our personal stuff to the cellar. It's closed by key, and we try to also close several cupboards, which they don't need, but always a cleaning lady there who has the access to this cupboards. For example, we put all the uh, linen for the beds inside,
Mm.
and the usually renters they don't have access to, but there is nothing super precious what is there.
Mm.
So it's like she comes, she opens it, she changed the beds, and we have separate bed sets for guests, and we have
Mhm.
ours, the same for the towels, and sometimes, it's interesting. The guests we had last summer, we had a guest who moved the furniture outside to different location from where it was originally, and I found that it was better this way. So I did and it was very
So
funny.
you
I was
have
like,
like your own, you have
yeah.
your own interior designer.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I will keep it this way. It was very interesting experience. So I'm not always, see the changes
Yeah,
in the house like, I don't like it. Sometimes they change things in the house and I do like it.
yeah,
And yeah, it was like sometimes you have also complaints or more like construction advices, which you don't
yeah,
follow because either you can't do it or you don't want to do it. Because in my house, we
yeah,
don't have a bathtub, for example. And
yeah,
one client, he was asking, why don't you add a bathtub? But I say, where? I don't have a space
mm,
for it. But
yeah,
yeah, some things are doable, other things are not doable. But it's always interesting to see, how people look at your house and what is possible to change.
yeah,
Not always in the negative way.
yeah, absolutely. And for anybody looking to move to Spain and they're maybe in a more comfortable position and they're like, should I do this? Should I make this move? What's some advice or some learnings or some things that you've learned um, during these last few years that you'd want to let them know?
And again, I mean, what is the reason to move to Spain? If you want just my advice about investing in Spain and not to use it yourself, I would say there are some many other ways to invest money and to get quickly your money back with some ROI. But like a stock exchange, maybe some startups, well, startups nowadays as well, very risky. But if you would think that yourself you would profit from the property, that you would maybe use it when you will go on retirement, then I think it is you have your personal attachment to Spain. Then you would come more often here. You would like to learn about culture and people. Then it is more interesting to think the ways and the area where you want to be. Just for investment, I don't think so, because the tax system in Spain is not one of the best in the world. You have Portugal right on the side, and Portugal has much more interesting, attractive schemes, I would say. But Spain has unbeatable quality of food. So food is very good. Fruits are very nice, and flowers all year round. Climate 360 days, like sunshine
Yeah.
during the year. And all these things, not so many countries can offer you. Also, safety. I mean, okay, you have some cities like Barcelona, which are a bit less safe. But in our region of Costa Blanca, it's very safe. I never
Yeah.
felt like I can't go out in the evening, or that I was
Yeah.
attacked with my purse or something like this. Never
Yeah.
happened. So I think
Yeah.
it's very safe, very friendly environment for kids, and it is a medium-sized city, so not that much traffic, and I think it's very, very useful to be for early stage or early kids age here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. I've really enjoyed this chat.
Yes, thank you too for calling me. I think we're always happy to discuss, some more questions which clients might have. And if they are, have any questions, they can easily contact us. I think I can give you our details, and then they can get back to us.